And I will share my screen. Okay, I think we're recording. Hey everybody, this is Jeff Pilosek from the Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship. Welcome to our first webinar for the Mentor Networks theme. In this webinar, we're going to be talking about and focusing on defining mentor roles and the characteristics of mentors and sort of the values that good mentors have or mentors bring to developing a good mentoring relationship. So again, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes for the webinar. When you're not speaking, please mute yourself. And then of course, remember to unmute yourself when you start talking. You can select the gallery view in the top right-hand corner to see everyone's faces. And then we also have the chat function, which if you click on the chat icon, a little box will come up and then you can communicate with us through the chat window as well. And then finally, just as a reminder, we are recording this webinar. Okay, so from the Miller Center, again, I'm Jeff Pilosek. I'm a program manager. And Pamela and I met you last time, or Pamela's met you before, but I will let maybe Lynn introduce herself because Lynn is joining us and she's our in-resident expert on managing mentor networks. So Lynn, you want to say hello?
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. As Jeff said, I'm Lynn, and I have been for the past year the director of Miller Center's Mentor Network. And prior to that, I have been a mentor for 9 years. So I would characterize my entry into the Mentor Network as part of generation, not the first generation, which I think we have Pamela as that first group. I'm the second generation, so I'm bringing to you my experience as an early mentor in the program, as well as a year's worth of experience as the Mentor Network director. So welcome, everyone. I'm looking forward to presenting to you.
Thanks, Lynn. Pamela, you want to say a quick hello? Pamela?
Pamela's muted.
Yes, you're right. Listen to the instructions. So hi, everyone. It's great to see familiar faces and names. And thank you again for joining us on our last call to provide input that Jeff and I have incorporated into the discussions that we'll be having starting this evening. So I hope that we'll make this a very interactive conversation, and then we'll follow up with next steps. Jeff will do that at the end of the call. So welcome.
Great. And maybe we could do just, everybody who's on could do just a quick introduction, just your name and what organization you're with, and just so everybody knows who else is on the webinar with us. Let's see, Pamela, can you see the list of participants?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's go. So I know the WISE Vietnam team is on. So I'm not sure who, but let's see. Is it?
Hello.
Yeah. Yes.
Hello. It's me. Hi. I'm Hiền. I'm the CEO of WISE Vietnam. WISE stands for Women's Initiative for Startup and Entrepreneurship. So I'm managing an organization that supports women in business, mainly startup.
Great. Thank you. Sorry. And Visanu from RISE.
WISE. I'm sorry.
Visanu from RISE.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
RISE.
Hello?
RISE. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello everyone, I'm Vishnu from Rise Impact. Yeah, we are based in Bangkok, Thailand. Yeah,
From the same team.
yeah. And also
Oh,
Julie,
we got two of you.
we bought from Rise Impact.
Great.
Julie, you're there too?
Yes, here.
Okay, great. Good. And Thao from KISS Startup? Oh, you don't, oh, you just disappeared. No, you don't have a microphone, so we'll come back to you. Maybe you can sort out your microphone. Nugra from Instellar?
Hello, I'm Nugra from Instellar. I'm new here. Previously, maybe my supervisor, Aulia Rahman, has joined you. But thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. Melanie?
Yeah, I'm Melanie. I'm from Impact of Phnom Penh in Cambodia, and we run an incubator for early stage startups.
Great, thank you. Greg?
Hi, I'm Greg from Exchange. We are an incubator and investor for early stage social enterprises in the Philippines.
Thank you. Guillaume?
Hello, so Guillaume from SCA Impact, venture builder and venture fund in Indonesia and Singapore. We're still at the beginning. We're still not launched yet, but so yeah, so learning a lot with everyone to better launch it.
Great, thank you. Amna?
Hello everyone, I'm Amna from Pakistan, and I'm from Social Innovation Lab, and we focus on social entrepreneurship.
Great. And Adrian?
Hi guys, I'm Adrian. I'm from Social Innovation Accelerator Program. We're based in Indonesia, Jakarta. We run incubator and accelerator programs for early stage social entrepreneurs in Jakarta and greater area.
Great, thank you. And Theo, it doesn't look like you have a microphone yet, so but Theo from KISS Startup is on as well, joining us. So I think I got everyone.
Did we miss anybody? Okay. Thank you for those introductions. I know some of you have met each other in Singapore. I haven't met any of you, so I know. So for me, these introductions, even though we did them last time, are super helpful, and hopefully they're helpful for you as well, just to know who else is on the call with us. Okay. So just as a reminder, sort of where we are in the webinar series, this is the first, this is webinar number 1. We're talking about definition of mentors, roles, characteristics, and values. And then the next part of the series that happens after that will be basically a review session in a couple of weeks. And I'll come back to that at the end and talk about what the review session is going to look like. So what we have planned today is first we're going to kind of go through a little bit of background about the Miller Center programs and approach to mentoring. And this is really intended to give you a little bit of context for some of the examples that we're going to give, because we're going to draw a fair amount on our own experience in sort of managing and running a mentor network. But the point is to give you some details about what our programs, how our programs work, just a little bit, what our mentor pool looks like and how we leverage mentors for our programs, to give you some basic context of what we're doing, because I think as you think about examples that we give and how best to apply them to the programs that you have, you may have and will likely have quite a bit of a different context that you're working with. So some things will need to be adjusted and revised based on your own local context. We're going to go through sort of the characteristics and values that we think make good mentors. And I know, I think we've had these for a while, and I think they actually work quite well for Miller Center. And then we'll give you an example of the mentor roles and types that we have at Miller Center. And the goal here is to really show you sort of how we think about the different roles and types of mentors that we use, how we characterize those, how we differentiate between them, to get you thinking about how mentor roles and types should work or do work within your own organization. And then we'll follow up with just some basic next steps, what to do next at the end of this webinar. Any questions?
So if there are no questions, I'll just do the setup as Jeff was saying, and just kind of give you all the context of which we're working and where kind of things have changed and grown over time. As Lynn said, I actually started mentoring over 10 years ago with Miller Center, and lots of things have changed, and we've learned a lot with mentoring. And so we'd like to just kind of set all that up for you. But just to give you some context, Miller Center is based at Santa Clara University, which is a Jesuit university in the heart of Silicon Valley. And we're what's known as a center of distinction. So we're not an academic unit. So we work in the world with people like yourselves, partners, and then also directly with social entrepreneurs. And for those of you that don't know anything about the Jesuits, I didn't before I joined Santa Clara. The Jesuits are all about social justice, and we see our role at Miller Center of combining the ethos of the Jesuit traditions around social justice with the DNA of Silicon Valley and entrepreneurship. And so for us, it's all about what comes together. Our mission is accelerating entrepreneurship to end global poverty and protect the planet. So that's kind of the thrust of the work that we're doing with the entrepreneurs as they go through our GSBI programs. Jeff, next slide, please. So over the last, over 15 years, we've worked with over 1,000 social entrepreneurs globally. And collectively, they've raised around $1 billion. And as you all know, that's an important metric, and one of our KPIs is that, in order for these organizations to grow and scale their impact, they need the funding to do so. And so our focus with the entrepreneurs is on their business models and helping them think through how to become investment ready. And so collectively, they've impacted the lives of over 380 million people. And if you're not talking, can you put yourself on mute, please? So collectively, they've impacted the lives of 380 million people and are in 100 countries around the world. And so the work we do is virtual with them. Most of it is virtual. We do have some in-person workshops and such, but most of it is virtual. And then really where this whole work comes alive is through our mentors. So Jeff, next slide, please.
Yep.
So this kind of shows you about more than 5 years ago, the Monitor Group came up with this framework of blueprint to scale, looking at the journey that social enterprises go through. So there's the blueprint phase, which is the ideation phase. Many of you are working with social entrepreneurs in that phase. Then there's the validate, where they're doing the product market fit, that's kind of the testing and such in the market. And then there's the prepare to scale and the scale stage. And so when I first started mentoring, we only had at Miller Center one program that we had, and it was essentially focused on the validate stage. And we were only supporting about 15 or 20 social enterprises a year. Now we've got a lot more programs, as you can see, and we're supporting over 150 social entrepreneurs going through our programs. And really what this curriculum does is it basically, in my mind, the way I talk about it is it guides the conversation. So, you know, it has modules and such, but really what underpins all the work that we do, and we say that it is the most critical part of our program, is our mentoring. And we pair the entrepreneurs up with usually 2 mentors, and they meet on a weekly basis with the social entrepreneurs. And you'll get to know more about how this works in a minute. But really, this is it's high touch from the mentor's point of view and working with these entrepreneurs. And the curriculum, as I said, guides the conversation. But the reality is, on weekly calls, the entrepreneurs have, you know, their hair on fire problem of the day or the week, and so they'll bring that to the conversation with the mentors, and they can problem solve together on those too. So it goes much beyond the curriculum, and really the goal of the mentor is to become the trusted advisor to these social entrepreneurs. And we see that even though when a program ends, many of the relationships between the mentors and the social entrepreneurs continue because they've really formed that bond. It's not anything that we're doing programmatically to foster that ongoing relationship. It's just because that they've formed that. Next slide, please. So this kind of shows you a bit of the way that the work that we do, with the mentors do actually with the social entrepreneurs. So the social entrepreneurs will watch videos that has content, which is, you know, it's what I call the teaching moment. It's teaching the entrepreneurs about a concept, say, you know, how they think about their target market or what unit economics means, etc. And then through all of the work that we do with the entrepreneur, it's very practical. So just like we'll work with you on tools and templates that you're working on around how you want to build a mentor and maintain a mentor network, that's the way that we work with the entrepreneurs. So they have homework to do. And so they'll do that homework, they'll send it to their mentors, the mentors will review it, give them feedback, the entrepreneur will update, and that can cycle a couple of times perhaps, and then the mentors and the SCs, when they're happy with it, will sign off and they'll move on to the next module. So you can see that on a weekly basis, they're working on content and getting feedback, but then, like I said, there's also just the natural conversations that take place of what's happening in their business and what they and what help in other ways the mentor can support them with. So that's a bit of kind of our programs and really how mentoring kind of anchors everything that we do. And it really is where, and I think I shared with you last call that, I mean, you know, I would say, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'd say over 90% of the social entrepreneurs at the end of a program in their surveys will say that the best piece of, and what they got the most out of was the mentors. And if it's not the first thing, it'll be the second thing that they say. So this is something that we care a lot about, and are really happy to be working with you and on your journey of thinking about how to build and maintain a mentor network.
Yeah, and I would just add in, I think Pamela touched on this, but you know, this work process flow is really, it's intended to sort of develop a conversation between the entrepreneur and the mentor around this programmatic curriculum. But as Pamela sort of touched on, a lot of the value actually comes from the mentors really diving into the unique and specific challenges that the entrepreneur is having with their enterprise. So, you know, the curriculum is often helpful in sort of getting conversations going, but once they, you know, learn enough about each other, once the entrepreneur digs in enough to provide value, then I think a lot of it just comes from, you know, really helping to focus on specific challenges that the enterprise has. All right, Lynn.
Okay, so the numbers you're looking at here are compiled from our population of mentors that were engaged last year for our cohort that culminated in residence in August. So we collected data on all of the active mentors. We have 293. We looked at their LinkedIn profiles. We obviously, when we composed, we figured out their degrees they've held. They hold. Many of them are multiple degrees. And we also wanted to take a pulse on the genders. So I'm pretty proud of the number of 37% female, 63% male. Way better than my business school class. I don't know about you guys, but so this is a snapshot of our current mentor network. I'll say one more thing about that current mentor network. I would guess, although I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would guess that the profile of the mentor network when it first started, which was I think approximately 15 mentors, I think the profile is going to be quite similar, but obviously much smaller. And that was 15 years ago. So we started with about 15 mentors 15 years ago, and now we're at roughly 300 mentors, active mentors. We have seen coming through our program more than 400, but we have had several retire, many retire, and people come in and out of our program as well. So the collective work experience is also really an interesting factor. We have most of our population have been working, have more than 30 years, 30 or more than 30 years of work experience. If it's not 30, then it's 20. So the majority of our mentors are those who have worked for many, many years and are maybe they're retooling themselves for a new career, and they find us through friends and colleagues, and it's a way for them to activate their next experience in life beyond the normal workday. We have sort of a gap between 10 and 20 because although we've tried to activate a network of getting younger mentors, we found that a lot of those folks are very, very busy with their careers and with their families and just don't have the time to spend in an additional extracurricular activity. So, but that for us works very well because the 30+ mentors are the ones that have the most, that generally have the most wisdom and are very well appreciated by our social entrepreneurs. We also have a lot of different, the folks in our mentor network have participated in many different roles, lots of founders and co-founders, chairmen, boards of trustees and advisors, a lot of the C-suite organization, lots and lots of directors, a fair amount of consultants and vice presidents. So we've got a pretty executive heavy mentor network, which is also very useful and I think appreciated and comes in handy for us mentors to provide a frame of reference for the social entrepreneurs as they start in their careers. That's it for our I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to pause for a second and do a little bit of a reality check with you guys, because we know that we're in a fairly unique situation, being located, in the heart of Silicon Valley, where we have access to a pool of, not only a lot of successful executives who have run companies, but also are steeped in the mindset of kind of entrepreneurships and startups. So I wanted to stop for a second and have you guys sort of consider really how your programs are different, how the enterprises you work with might be different than what Miller Center is doing, how the pool of mentors that you're drawing from is likely to be quite a bit different. And then, think about, as we're going through, not only this webinar, but the rest of the webinars, sort of how can you adapt what you're learning to fit within the local context of your programs. So before I go on, I just want to stop and see if anybody has any comments, thoughts, or questions that they'd like to share.
I can speak for Cambodia, for example. So
Yeah.
So in Cambodia, so because of genocide that happened like 35 years ago, like the country like start building everything from scratch afterward, and what happened is that we have very little like we have a few successful family business owners, and but I would say only maybe like 5-10 people who are like from scratch successful entrepreneurs in the country. So so this is also hard to get them on board. So what happened is that we have now also a mixed pool of a bit of Cambodian mentors and more like external mentors, like foreigners, to fill the gaps, for example.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. Anybody else want to share sort of how their local context is different?
Hi, this is Oishi from BRAC, Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So basically from us, the incubator we've so far run, our mentors are mostly directors of BRAC, senior leadership of BRAC, and also we try to create a blend of sectoral expertise as well as entrepreneurship expertise. So many of our mentors are not really entrepreneurs themselves, but more of like experts within the organization and in their field. And it has always been a struggle to find female mentors within Dhaka. I'm not saying that there aren't any or there aren't many, but it's always difficult to, whenever you're making a match and whenever you're trying to more like create a balance, because we also usually give our entrepreneurs a choice to pick their mentors. So we've seen that has been a constant struggle. And one more thing is in terms of having the mentors engaged, it has been a struggle as well. We've seen that many cases, mentors weren't available as much as we would like them to be. And we've tried different things, kind of mentor scoring, review meetings, things like that, but it actually like didn't add up to our expectations at the end of the day. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think, for a lot of you are probably don't have access to the same pool of folks that are have a lot of experience, relevant experience, but also are either close to or already at retirement. And so, that's a fairly unique situation that we have that allows us to really engage people at a time when they have more time on their hands. So I can see, I know from my experience in some of the work I'm doing in the Philippines and helping a university set up some accelerator programs there and build their own mentor network there. They have many of these struggles as well because they are drawing on the talent of people who are working full time. So keeping them engaged is an ongoing challenge. Anybody else want to share?
Heen has a couple of things in the chat window. One was that a comment that asking our mentors to do a call a week seems like a big commitment, is asking about incentives. And then also along with that I think that there's, you match one entrepreneur with 2 mentors and then 1 call per week, and that's 2 meetings per week. Actually, no, the mentors they'll all coordinate on and do 1 call a week. It's not 1 call per mentor. So it's only 1 call. And then to answer the incentives, Lynn, why don't you chime in on that one?
Yeah, so I can actually add a little bit to each of the 3 comments. First, the incentives, we do not pay them, so they are strictly a volunteer workforce. The incentives are purely personal. Everybody that I have ever spoken to that has entered the network has done so because they're looking for some more meaning in their life. And that sort of also coincides with Huyen's last comment, or the middle comment was, it seems hard to, or that was known, Thau's comment, it seems hard to convince heads of large companies to be a mentor. And you are absolutely correct. We don't have, I don't believe, currently active any large head of a company who is actually an acting CEO or anything like that, because it really is too much. But we have CEOs that have retired. So we have people who have been CEOs. We don't generally have CEOs that work, because that is, they're obviously focused elsewhere. So you were right. It would be really hard to get a CEO to come work, especially for volunteer. But maybe not if they're getting ready to retire. So our incentives are all wrapped up around personal beliefs of the mentors and their willingness and interest to find some more meaning in their life now that they have a little bit more time to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. And let's see, what was that? So the meetings, yeah. So we found we had at one point would pair one mentor with one social entrepreneur, but what we found is that if you have two mentors, then there's a little bit more flexibility on the mentor's side to, if you need to miss a call. I'm a very firm believer that in our mentor network, the mentor must show up. One mentor must show up for every call. Just be available. But if you set that expectation right away and you meet that, you become the person who's reliable. It's perfectly acceptable for the social entrepreneur to say, I can't, I'm crazy, I've got fires I've got to put out this week, I can't have the meeting. And the mentor's role is, if there's anything we can do to help you with those fires, let us know, but we'll meet you in a week. But when we have, therefore, if we have two mentors, because everybody's schedule is unpredictable, there's usually at least one mentor on the call at any one time. Also, we find that not all, nobody knows everything. And so we try and get a group, a pair of mentors that have complementary experience to make the mentoring process more meaningful to the social entrepreneur. And then there's a third piece, which is, I haven't quantified this yet, but I think there's a certain amount of value that a mentor gets by being paired with another mentor. We all, like I say, none of us know everything. And I always learn way more from listening to my co-mentor on a team than I would have expected. So there's an added bonus in there to having two mentors on a team. And then sorry, I'm running on here, but there's a fourth reason why we like to have a second mentor. And that's because when we bring on new mentors, it's really kind of difficult to know and feel like you're doing the right job. So if we pair a new mentor with an experienced mentor, then the two of them can work together, and the new mentor doesn't feel like they're missing something. So that's why we do the two. It's worked really well for us. But obviously, I don't believe we started that way. We had less mentors in the beginning, and so it was a one-on-one. But we have evolved to a mostly 2-to-1 ratio.
So I'm also just going to mention, because I know you touched on this, or the question came up about incentives, and like Lynn said, we have an entirely volunteer mentor workforce. But in a later webinar, we are going to touch on sort of what we call the care and feeding of mentors. And this is really, so how do you recognize and reward mentors for the work that we're doing? And so Lynn has a lot of great stuff that she's been doing with our mentor pool. It does not involve giving them any money, but they do get some kind of cool recognition and rewards for participating in the Miller Center programs. And then let's see.
Julie has a question.
Yeah.
Let's see. So many high-profile successful people don't understand yet about social enterprises and how to manage to guide them towards social entrepreneurs. That basically, how do we educate people that could be that are our target market for mentors that don't really know about social entrepreneurship?
Yes, that's a great question. I've had a little bit of experience doing that again with this program that we've launched in the Philippines. We went in and did a few rounds of training with a group of new mentors that we started there. And the mentors in that program, the majority of them actually were faculty that were part of the business school at this university. So they were well versed in sort of business theory, and some of them actually had business experience. But the whole idea of social entrepreneurship was actually very new to them. So we did a couple of things with that group. We had one, and again, most of this was done virtually, although we did some training in person. But we had one session where we just tried to understand what their starting point was to have them share their ideas about what they thought social entrepreneurship was, just to get a baseline of sort of where that group was. And that helped us put together sort of the next round of materials and training to help bring them along and bring them up to speed on what we were doing. Hen also had a question about whether mentors can be investors in the social enterprises. And I don't know specifically whether Miller Center has.
I can answer that, actually.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, well, so we actually just formalized a policy, a formal, informal policy. It's contained in our mentor handbook. But basically, what we say is that during the period of the cohort, the engagement, from the beginning of the homework assignments to the graduation, mentors are not allowed to be investors. They are not allowed to be members of boards. They're not allowed to provide consulting services. They're not allowed to sell or try and gain any sort of personal or professional gain from the experience whatsoever. But we also recognize that by the end of these programs, a lot of the mentors have developed a very close relationship and very valuable relationship with the social entrepreneur, and will often be invited to be members of a board, or in some cases, some of our mentors are they have some money that they want to invest in enterprises, and they get so connected with a particular enterprise that they may invest. And then there are others who are very good consultants, and if the organization has a budget to pay for some consulting services, we certainly don't want to preclude the mentor from acting in that way if there's certain rules. So what I would recommend that you do, I think, Jeff, I don't know if we have shared yet with them the mentor handbook, but at some point I'm sure you'll be able to see a copy of it. And we can get you our guidelines for that. But we do all of that so that the relationship during the mentoring is completely free of suspicion and totally above board. And we think it's really important that that's the case. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I mean, I think that's exactly right. Is obviously the nature of the relationship will change significantly if if someone has an investment with the entrepreneur. And I think in our mentoring relationship, we want it to be a fully open and trusting relationship, because we really want the entrepreneurs to share all of the challenges that they have in their business and their impact model, because that's the best way that mentors can help them, if they're really open and honest about what their challenges are. And I think once someone takes an investment, then you're a little reluctant maybe to share all of your warts at that point. So let's see. I know I saw a question in the chat also around training mentors, and we're going to actually cover that at a later webinar. I think, I can't remember if it's the next one, but it's one of the upcoming webinars where we'll touch on onboarding and training of mentors.
And then the comment from Guillaume Catella, how do mentors interact? Only during calls with the SEs, or do they prepare courses together? So mentors don't actually give any lectures or anything during the course of mentoring, but they may be good friends. We have some mentors that mentor together every year, and so then they develop their own working relationship. We have Oftentimes they may meet, a lot of them live in the same area, so they may meet for coffee. Very often they will all meet, they will have an initial call among themselves during the period. We don't have structured rules about this. What we try and do, because our mentor pool is full of very strong-willed and independent thinkers, if we had rules, they probably wouldn't follow them. So we kind of give them general instructions, and we have the curriculum that we use to help the social enterprises and the mentors get to the finish line. But we don't do anything structured, and the only other structured relationship is that the new mentor is paired with the experienced mentor and has the responsibility to prepare for the calls, participate in the calls, but is not responsible for confirming the homework assignments are complete. That is the job of the lead mentor. So I hope that's helpful.
Great. Anybody else have questions or some challenge that they want to ask Lynn about? Okay. Why don't we keep going? And Lynn will share a little bit about sort of what qualities we look for when we're seeking to recruit and bring in new mentors. Lynn?
Sorry about that. As I said, we have a population of very independent-minded mentors. So, and it's a broad mix of individuals. So what we do is we select for the right qualities in a mentor, more so than we select in whether they were a consultant, whether they were a CEO, whether they were a founder. And let me just say also on the founder versus an executive, we have an awful lot of our mentors who maybe have said they were in a startup, which is true, but they may have not been in a very early stage startup. And we also have a lot of mentors who have always been in very large companies. So being an entrepreneur per se isn't the thing that makes the mentor the secret sauce. Being the trusted advisor is what makes the mentor the secret sauce. So what we try and do is select for the right person. And actually the right person self-selects to become a mentor in our organization. And so, you know, the various components this list is compiled by the original director of Mentor Networks, a man by the name of Mike Looney, who ran HR departments in a number of companies, including Adobe. So he steered our course straight from the very beginning in looking for a particular type of person. And then I would say also that these qualities become self-selecting for the mentors that want to join our network. So this is the list. I think in the next couple of slides, you can see the detail. I don't need to necessarily review it with you, but we look for these components: humble, respectful, encouraging, and we assess whether they're there or not in two different ways. One, we really strongly like to have a colleague within the network who's already a mentor, who would recommend their friends, the people that they know who are interested. And two, we conduct interviews of everybody, and we make sure we hear from the person we're interviewing the qualities that you see here.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. And as Lynn mentioned, there are some slides here that go into a little more detail about what each of these traits are that we're looking for in mentors. And you will have access to this full slide deck, but we don't need to read through every single piece here. So just going to flip through these quickly. And what I want to do now is talk you through just sort of an example, and this is based on what we do at Miller Center, of the different types of mentors that we have, how we characterize them in terms of their role, and what we're looking for at for each of these types in terms of their experience and their education and how they are referred to us and their level of commitment. And this is not intended for you to just sort of copy down and transplant, our version of this, but it is designed to just as an example to get you thinking about your own programs, the different roles you have for mentors within those programs, and then how you would describe sort of their roles and their levels of experience and levels of commitment for each mentor type that you have. There's a couple actually, in addition to the ones here that Miller Center uses, there's a few that are beyond the ones listed here because we use mentors in a variety of other ways as well. We have some mentors that we draw on their subject matter expertise when we're developing curriculum for our programs. So they would come in specifically to work on sort of projects. We have mentors that have some specific subject matter expertise, especially around finance. We find that's sort of a unique thing that a lot of entrepreneurs need. So sometimes they are used in special ways. We have, what else do we have, Lynn? Did I miss anything? We have executive fellows as well, right?
Yeah. And we also just have some people there's mentors that have expertise in intellectual property, so in patent law and things like that. So they're sitting kind of, if you will, on the sidelines, ready to support anyone. So we kind of have mentors that are assigned to a specific social entrepreneur, and then we have more mentors at large that can come in on specific things that aren't as widely known, like patent law and such like that.
And then we have what we have is an executive fellow, and that would be probably usually someone from our mentor network who is probably gotten really interested in one particular subject. For example, John Kohler was a mentor who also was very experienced in the impact investing space, and he subsequently has written lots of papers and does a lot of work, not only with Miller Center, but elsewhere on different investment vehicles. And so he was an executive fellow, and rather than just being a mentor, he has spent a lot of time developing thought leadership in his area of expertise. There are others that are doing the same thing in other areas of expertise.
Great. So the purpose of sharing this example is I want to ask you all to begin to create, fill in a version of this template. And so here's what the blank template looks like. I've actually uploaded the blank template to Slack already. So you should have access to this file. In fact, I will upload the whole slide deck for all of you as well. But the idea is for you to think about in your own organizations what the different roles of mentors you have are, and then begin to fill in how those are differentiated from each other. And in terms of things like mentor qualities, which Lynn just reviewed with you, what we look for at Miller Center. Feel free to steal the stuff that we use at Miller Center, but also think about, is there something different that are values that you want to bring out in your own organization, or that you think would be most beneficial for the entrepreneurs that you work with. And so what I'll ask you to do is, spend a little time on this. This shouldn't take you very long. At the next review session, or before the next review session, I'd love to have you share your draft of this, and then we can maybe pick a few of them and kind of discuss them at the next review seminar.
Can I, Jeff, can I say
Yeah.
something?
Yeah,
So,
sure, of course.
sorry, and I'm just so sorry that Zoom on my laptop gave out, so I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that, as Lynn says, we've been mentoring for a long time, and when I first became a mentor, we didn't have all these different types of mentors, and over time we've understood more and more what we can do and what we can promise to social entrepreneurs and such. So as you're thinking through that template of, so what is it'd be interesting for you to think about what's your current reality, and then what's a dream state for you in terms of mentors, and what, or if nothing else, take the next step. And so what do you think the next version of your mentor pool could look like, so that you understand maybe where you would like to take it?
Thanks. Yes, of course, that makes a lot of sense. And again, just, the Miller Center has been doing this for quite a long time. So you all have to kind of start where you are. So I think Pamela's suggestion is great, and maybe do a version that kind of maps out where you are now, and then think about where you'd like to get to ultimately, what the ideal state looks like for you. So any questions about the template, or what we're asking you to do? Okay. Great. So in terms of next steps then, take a look at the template, think about how it can be used to map out your mentor types and characteristics. Think about the values that you're looking for in mentors that you want to recruit. And then I'm hoping that by Friday, March 8th, which would give you about 2 weeks, that you would have a draft of this that you could share on Slack and in the mentoring theme channel. And then we could, everybody will be able to see each other's. And I think there's really a lot of learning that can happen by sharing between yourselves. And so hopefully that can happen through the Slack channel. People can take a look at others' versions of this template. And then the next seminar, the review session, is scheduled for March 12th Australia time, or March 11th Pacific time. And at that session, I'll probably pick a few of these, and maybe that we can share and just have a discussion around. And then also it'll be open sort of Q&A to address any challenges or any questions that came up in the process of working on this. And that's it for today's webinar. So thank you all for participating.
Jeff,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There is a question, and
Oh,
Lynn,
sorry.
and we're going back and forth with OSHA
Yeah.
through chat here.
Okay.
And asking, how, what ensures that mentors stick to it. So my assumption is sticking to, I'm not sure what, sticking to mentoring a social entrepreneur, or sticking with being a mentor in the program, one or both.
Mm-hmm.
So I provided a text answer,
Yeah.
but it probably only addressed one of those, so I can maybe even clarify that further.
Yeah.
So we try really hard to make sure that when we get a mentor who is interested in becoming a mentor, they truly understand that once they say yes, that means they are committing to a weekly call. And with the fact that we have 2 mentors, then committing to a weekly call for 6 months isn't as frightening. It seems that it's not quite so frightening because of schedules and vacations and everything else that comes up. It's probably impossible to make every single call, but it is. It's not hard to get a commitment of doing the most they can to meet those calls. with regards to returning a second year, we may only get, we do have a certain amount of mentors that try it for a year, and for one reason or another, maybe the relationship wasn't a great one, or it was not what they'd hoped it was going to be, then they will leave. Although I think that, Jeff, I think you looked at some numbers. I think our attrition rate was like 10 or 15% of the people after mentoring one full cycle, do they come back again? So I hope those are the two stickiness. I'm assuming there's also the case where the social entrepreneur ends up having to drop out because of work crises or things like that, in which case we have mentors who are set free for the term, and then we try really hard to make sure that they come back again by having other programs up and running. So
yeah, I think actually the attrition rate after the first year is quite a bit higher. I don't remember the exact number, but maybe for the next call I'll look it up and share it with you all. But it's fairly high, and I think what ends up happening is there's a high level of self-selection. Is new mentors will try it and do it for 1 year, and then a group of them will decide this isn't really the right thing for me. But then what you end up with, the ones that come back, are really getting a lot of sort of intrinsic rewards for acting as a mentor, and they're the ones that will come back and continue to come back.
Yeah, okay.
And Julie asks, what are your thoughts on a bi-weekly call?
You mean 2 calls per week, or 1 call every 2 weeks?
One call,
every 2 weeks?
1 call every 2 weeks, yeah.
I would experiment with it. If you can't get mentors to commit to once a week, then I would certainly experiment with a bi-weekly call. There could be maybe quick little email check-ins, but I think we have always used weekly calls as a way to make it happen. Although maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Pramil, but maybe it was a lot looser in the beginning, and it ended up being that most people found that the best way to do it was a weekly call.
Yeah, and I'll say that the very first call that as a mentor, and I continue to mentor today because it's like one of my most favorite things to do, is the very first call you're doing with the entrepreneur and the mentor. They're figuring out how to put it on their calendar, and it's irregular. It's whatever, Mondays at 9 o'clock or whatever time it is, but it gets put on everyone's calendar, and that's rather than after each call trying to find the next time. You just put it on the calendar. So I think that's and so if biweekly can work, then I don't see where that could be a problem.
Yeah, the other thing is the timing of the call. For all the times I've mentored, my calls are either first thing in the morning or late, 4 or 5 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock at night. So for my time, so that, because I actually have other jobs that I do during the day, and a lot of folks do as well. So, and so does the social entrepreneur, right? So, and our time zones there's a lot of people that it's morning here, it's evening there. When it's evening there, it's morning here. So it works out that way for us.
Yeah, and I've from what I've heard, it seems like one of our best practices, and from the mentors that I've worked with, and they talk about sort of what works with scheduling with the entrepreneurs, is having this regular weekly rhythm where you can, set a regular time and day every week is really, really helpful. So you don't have to try to coordinate a new meeting every time after your last meeting. The other thing I would say is, there's a little bit of a risk if you spread the meetings further apart, because we know sometimes even if you have a regular schedule, you'll need to reschedule sessions. Something comes up for the entrepreneur, something comes up for the mentor, and then you'll have to reschedule. So if you only have them scheduled every 2 weeks, there's a risk of those getting spread out even further apart.
Yeah, the other thing we do is we don't check and confirm. We have no data to know for sure whether or not everyone is having those calls and how many calls are being missed. But we do have a lot of response from mentors and everybody else saying that. And our recommendation, do the best you can, make it a weekly call.
So Theo asks how we match mentors with mentees, and Jeff, I can't remember that that's going to be included in an upcoming webinar, right?
Yes, we will touch on that in a future webinar.
So Theo, hopefully you can hold on to that question, and we will reveal how we do that. And I'll just do a little bit of a preview. It's a bit of an art and a science. So
the way we do it is also somewhat labor intensive, so it may not be something that you want to replicate, but it's, we'll certainly share what that looks like.
So then Nugra is asking about our opinion about having a pool of managers that have a lot of consulting background. Will there be less knowledge on the practical side?
Well, that's a hard one to answer, especially since I'm a consultant. But, the practical application of this stuff is, of the modules that we have at Miller Center is where the work really gets done. It's where the learning is really happening. So if you have mostly consultants, maybe you might want to look to of spreading the practical people into jumping into several teams just to check in and make sure there's some practical work going on. Although I would expect that consultants should be able to apply the same knowledge and do problem solving on a practical extent as well.
Yeah, and I would say, mentors provide value in many different ways. Some of them have specialized expertise that they can share. Some of them are much more generalists. But one of the biggest values mentors provide is really, one is just listening really well to the issues and the challenges that entrepreneurs have, because being an entrepreneur is often a very sort of lonely road to travel. And so having somebody who can listen well to what's going on and give them feedback, I think is useful. And then the other thing, and this doesn't require any specific expertise, but it's more about helping them think through their challenges and decisions. And it's not making decisions for them, but it's helping them think through how to make decisions and supporting them in helping them reach decisions.
Yeah. The role of our mentors isn't to do the homework for them, and it isn't to tell the social entrepreneur what they should do. It's to ask the questions of the social entrepreneur about the homework, about their company, about their problems, in a way that helps the social entrepreneur come up with the answer.
Right.
That's all the questions. Any other questions in the chat or? Nope, nothing else is coming in.
All right, great. Well, if you do think of anything else and you want to interact with each other or ask questions of me before our next review seminar comes up, you can put a message out to me in the Slack channel for the mentoring theme, and I'll check that and respond there. Otherwise, we will plan on seeing you all at the upcoming review session.
Okay.
Great. Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Len.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank
Thanks,
you, Lynn.
Will.
Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.